I'm Christopher Schoenwald, and welcome to Life as a show intently focused on helping people find their professional pathway by exploring and unearthing the details of jobs from around the world. Before we get into today's episode, I just want to throw this out there. I have a channel over on YouTube, Life as a ... which basically hosts highlights from these audio conversations that I have with these great guests. They typically run 10 to 15 minutes, and they're there to kind of present a different vantage point. You know, for people that aren't into audio, aren't into podcasts, but are still looking for career advice, ideas, help, all that great stuff, send them over to YouTube. Like I said, Life as a ... And if you do get over there, I would love that like or subscribe. I mean, it's the best way to let that algorithm know that the content is worth sharing and should be out there. So anyway, I do thank you for letting me plug this a little bit, but I think it's about time to get into today's episode. Hey, welcome to the program. How many times have you heard that you need to follow your passions when choosing a career? Now, a lot of folks swear by this advice. However, others point out that passion is just too grave an idea to buy into. Some openly question whether this advice can be applied across the board. I mean, if my passion involves, say, yo-yos, should I chase that interest into the professional realm? Well, maybe yes, maybe no. I'm not here to debate any of those points. But what I will say about passion is that when you see someone who exudes it, it is special. I mean, you can feel it. It almost floats around an individual or within a room. And quite frankly, it's a potential game changer. It's kind of hard to say that it doesn't connect to notions of life satisfaction, purpose, motivation, and perhaps most importantly, meaning. Meaning within one's life and meaning within one's career. Well, on today's episode, you're about to hear from someone who undeniably is brimming with zest for her work. You'll get an up-close and personal feel of this particular guest's passion for her work as we break down her job as a career development specialist, including a look at a day in the life, some rewards, challenges, the role of technology, as well as many other topics related to what she does. And it's all coming your way. So to get it all kickstarted, let me fill you in on a few more details regarding our guest. And from there, we can do this. Ladi Mohammed is a seasoned careers development specialist. She's deeply committed to improving career services in education. Now, as the CEO and founder of Global Education Travel and Tours, or GET, Ladi connects educators, policymakers, and career development specialists with international learning opportunities that foster collaboration and the integration of global best practices into educational policies and career guidance. Through GET, Ladi works tirelessly to empower professionals to support young people in navigating their educational and career pathways. And her work revolves around equipping career professionals to tailor their practices to meet the needs of students from diverse backgrounds and cultures, enabling them to make informed decisions about their futures. Now, in addition to her leadership roles at GET, Ladi is passionate about empowering the next generation through careers education. And she has a proven track record of supporting the professional development of others with a strong focus on innovation, inclusion, and creating impactful change within the careers education landscape. Outside of her work, Ladi is a dedicated mother of 3 teenagers, balancing her professional and personal life with humor and resilience. And as an unpaid chauffeur, she often finds herself driving late into the night, including 4 a.m. party pickups for her eldest and friends after university events. Ladi's unique blend of professional expertise, global insight, and real-life parenting experience makes her an inspiring figure in the careers development sector. So with all this noted, I'd love to welcome you to my conversation with Ladi Mohammed. Yeah, so welcome to the program. How are you doing today, Ladi?
Not too bad, thank you, Christopher. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time. As you know, I do speak with a number of different professionals and entrepreneurs. But I got to say, it's quite rare that I get to talk careers with a careers development specialist. So that unto itself makes this episode for me personally, truly exciting. So again, thanks for taking some time and joining the program. I do have this first segment lined up for us today. It's called Coloring Wikipedia. As my listeners know, it's a segment where I just read off a definition of something related to what the guest is all about. Now, surprise, surprise, I do have you down here for career. And just to forewarn you, I did go with the most general and basic definition from Wikipedia on this, And I was hoping, based off your experience and wealth of knowledge in this space, you'd be able to fill in the blanks for us, and also maybe tear this definition to shreds if need be. Does that sound okay to you?
Sounds good.
All right, so here we go. Career from Wikipedia. Career. A career is an individual's metaphorical journey through learning, work, and other aspects of life. There are a number of ways to define career, and the term is used in a variety of ways. There it is, short and sweet. First take, what do you think of that?
Hmm. I agree with the very latter part that there is a lot of ways to define or sort of like talk about career, because it's often like, is it just, do you have one linear career or do you have several careers slash jobs? So I think for me, it's a career to an extent is what you make of it yourself in life. And I think to myself, I often ask people to just loosely define it because it can change for each individual and we have to allow for that journey. So, I look at my career journey and I know that what I studied at university, for example, is not what I'm doing now, but I am so much happier in what I'm doing now than what I studied in university. I did university to, kind of please my parents initially. So, I just think let's leave room for adaptability. But yeah, it's a fair enough definition. We'll go with that for now.
We're off to a good start then. What would you say to this idea as well? Like, this is something that I believe in. When we're looking at careers, it's not just the profession, it's not just the business that you're involved in. It's that rub off as well of how it affects your life. It affects your worldview and how you go about, living your life. What would you say to that?
I couldn't agree more with you, Christopher, because to me, I genuinely believe that a career and the job that you are in at any particular time has such a significant impact on your life that you should choose wisely to make sure you are within whatever it is that you're doing. I do genuinely believe in following what you might call your purpose, your passion. I know sometimes the rhetoric these days is, oh, what is passion? What is it's just, no, you got to go by what market demand. But I think if you find something that you're passionate about and that you feel fulfilled to do, you will find a way to make it work for you in life. And that's what I have done. I grew up I'll tell you more, I'm sure, as we go into the podcast, you know, in a more traditional African family. And academia was supposed to be the way. And I did follow the way academia. But after that, I realized it's not really being genuine to me, myself. I need something that's fulfilling and making me happy. So for me, I think, yeah, I like your outlook on it because to me, a career should be something that makes you happy and fulfilled. If you get your career right, I look at my father, for example, because he loved what he did and he got his career right, the impact of that had a ripple effect on everything around him, including us, his immediate family, his children. I mean, his work ethic is what I've adopted. But what I loved is he traditionally from Nigeria and grew up all my life in England. However, he kept sending money back home to Nigeria and it's changed his brothers' lives, his sisters' lives, his cousins' lives. They were able to build houses for themselves, start up businesses, all because my father was happy and satisfied doing what he loved. The money was secondary that he could use to change lives, but he was genuinely passionate and loved what he was doing. And I looked at that and I kind of decided, you know what, that worked for dad. Let it work for me.
I love that sentiment. I think that's it perfectly encapsulates ideas that I feel about this, and clearly that you do as well. And I think a key point too, in part of your story, as you mentioned, we'll get into this later on, but you don't necessarily need to know all of this right away. Like rarely do people figure this out. I mean, if you do, yeah, hats off to you. You're one of the lucky few, but in most cases, people find this out along the way through trial and error, through going through experiences that resonate with them or don't resonate with them. And that creates pivot points along that journey. So yeah, I think these are things that we're going to get into, a bit later on.
I love the word you use there, journey. And I think that's the key word. And as you said, pivot points throughout that journey. So for me, it's allowing yourself to really enjoy the journey. And guess what? Not knowing is actually great because it allows you to research on your terms and find out things on your terms and adapt it to the way you want. So I think, the lack of knowledge should also be embraced. And, another thing I believe in, because later on we'll talk more about this, is like work experience, for example. Some people is like, oh, I've had a bad work experience. And I'm like, why do you say it's bad? Oh, I didn't enjoy it, miss. I really hated it. I was just not me. But hey, that's a good thing. You now know that that's a career you don't want. Turn it around, flip the script,
Yeah,
So yeah.
100%. 100%. Well, I figured this might be an opportune time to learn a little bit more about you. Certainly off the top, I did mention, you and your background, but I understand that recently you yourself have gone through a bit of a pivot. So maybe you could fill listeners in on what I'm referring to.
Yes, you've caught me at a very pivotal moment in my life. I have worked for organizations all my life and I've loved it and I have grown and I have worked for some of the best organizations and best people as far as I'm concerned in my life. I cannot sing the praises of the Careers and Enterprise Company, say, for example, enough. Technically speaking, I'm still working in the Careers and Enterprise Company family, but as of this month slash next month, I will be my own CEO of my own company.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It will be very much about careers and it will be working with career development specialists like myself. So, taking career development professionals to tour and visit institutions around the world, educational establishments around the world to see how they do careers, how they doing education so that they can take that learning, that new knowledge back to their home country and to tailor that knowledge, that learning towards their clientele. If it be it in schools and colleges, it'll be young people, students as such. Make sure that the learning that they've gained is tailored towards the needs of the young people, the students in their schools and colleges. So I'm really quite excited about that, just because I genuinely believe we have so much to learn from people like yourself. You're not based in the UK, but look at us. We're having a conversation. I'm learning from you. We had a meeting before this. I learned so
Yeah.
much about what you're doing. I visited Finland and, I was immersed in the classroom there and could really take in what they believe over there.
Yeah.
Inclusion, diversity is in their DNA. And I think it's really important that we learn from other cultures and exchange ideas. There is no one way, right way to do things. You've got to be adaptable and meet the needs of your students, your clientele as such. So, yeah, for me, it's great that I'm finally living my own dream.
Yeah.
Kind of figured, you know what? There'll never be a right time to actually go and do this by yourself. Why not try it now?
Right.
And what I
Right.
love about it is, Christopher, if it works, great, which it will do. But if it doesn't, I can go back into full-time employment anytime. There is no set definition to say this is what I must do. Again, going back to the journey. So my journey right now is, starting my own business and I'm loving it.
Well, again, big congratulations to you. It's certainly an exciting time. And again, bringing that word back up again, journey, and I reckon that like where you're at right now and what you're, entertaining about doing, with all of this and with this company isn't something that would have been, I don't know, maybe it might not have been something that you would have thought possible 5, 10 years ago. You've accrued so much experience and so much knowledge along the way. And maybe entrepreneurship was never on your radar. Maybe it was. I don't know. We haven't gone into this in
Never,
conversations in the past. There you
never,
go. There you go. But like
never.
this journey, it takes you on all these different winding paths and you learn a little bit more about yourself. You learn about opportunities and who knows? I mean, I think it really does come down to keeping an open mind towards this. And these are valuable lessons for any young listener or any mid-career professional to be taking in right now. So I appreciate you sharing
It's
that.
also quite scary sometimes. And, I read years ago a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And that book kind of changed my life because it helped me to embrace fear. Fear was something that for me you ran away from. And then all of a sudden, the book is telling you this, well, fear is good. Lean into it, lean into the discomfort. And so for me, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm leaning into it and leaning into my discomfort. And I've listened to a lot of people around me who have, given me really great advice, people that I've looked up to. One of our senior managers, I think he was the one who changed my life probably about a year and a half ago. And, he said to me, how come I believe in you more than you believe in yourself?
Hmm.
And that took me back because I was like, I can't
Yeah.
be an entrepreneur. And he says, I believe you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Why
I'm
not?
thinking to myself, isn't that just profound? And I can't lie. Now I tell that to students all the time. How is it that I believe in you more than you believe in yourself? And they start checking themselves,
There you
so
go. Yeah, absolutely love that. I love that. Well, I would like to step into another segment here, a day in the life. And returning to you and your work, maybe we could shed some light on what it means to be a career development specialist. Maybe there's some listeners out here who have found this episode and have an interest in it, but don't exactly know what it's all about. Maybe you could fill in the blanks for us.
Sure. It's about supporting individuals or a group of individuals in some cases to find their own career path, to start their own journey really and truly. And that could be something that changes over time. So it could be that you're meeting somebody right at the very beginning, like a student, they have no idea what to do with their life, and they just come into you and miss, I don't know what to do. And let's have a conversation, I say
Hmm.
and or it could be that you're meeting somebody in the mid stage of their life. I've been doing this career and I found that, or this job, I found that I'm not very happy in it. Okay, let's
Yeah.
have a conversation, and then always go back to my mantra, let's have a conversation. How can I help? Those are my two mantras. So for me, or it could be that you're meeting somebody at the end of sort of like, retirement. I've had a few conversations with people. I've retired, but I don't feel I want to just retire.
Yeah.
And then you talk about volunteering opportunities and things like that, and helping them to see that even with their vast experience, they can actually redefine and reshape somebody else's life by sharing that knowledge. They can become a mentor, or they can become someone strategic that looks at say, a career strategy within a school and gives their input that this is what industry's been looking for. For example, now a lot of employers or employees of organizations are coming into schools and talking about, listen, embrace AI. You guys are using it. Let's keep using it. Tell me more about this whole AI thing. So in some ways, they are giving back, but the students also giving back to them, because the students saying, yeah, I use AI for this. And then they bring out their phone and they're having a conversation. And you're like, hold on, I'm mentoring you, but you're actually mentoring me. So there's quite a reverse
Yeah.
mentoring taking place here.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
mother being a classic one, I'll never forget when the iPhone came out. She didn't know how to use it. It was her grandchild, my daughter, that taught her. And I looked at it and I just marveled at the relationship they were building. My mother was scared of this new technology. Now you can't get her phone out of her hand. And this is a 78-year-old woman who just, it spends all her life kind of on the phone, sending memes and really encouraging everybody else around her. And she learned all that from my daughter when my daughter was about 7.
There you go. Yeah. What would a typical day look like for somebody such as yourself? I'm sure it would vary based on the organization you're working in. There's a lot of different variables, but in the most general sense, like what would it possibly sort of like show up as?
Let's see. I'm not sure which one of the kind of hats that I wear I'm trying to refer to. Let's go back to one of my favorite roles, probably my favorite role ever in that I've, done in life. It's the enterprise coordinator role. I loved being an enterprise coordinator. And that in itself, a title like that, you think, what does that mean? Really
Exactly.
and truly, or, exactly.
Yeah, I'm
All
drawing
it
a blank
really,
here too.
I know everybody does. I remember the days when I used to tell people I'm an enterprise coordinator, like, okay, I think we could have come up with a better name for that, but that's what we call ourselves even till today. So for me, it was a case of helping people understand that my job was to bridge the gap between education and employment, basically connect educators to employers. So my job was to make sure that employers were going into school to talk to students about their organization, even how they got to be where they are within their organization, but also really about what skills are needed in the job market. And also to get students to go out into the world of work so that they visit employer sites, even if it's just a half a day insight visit, that you visit the HR department, the marketing department, finance department, research department, hospitality department within a hotel. I'll never forget, I did that same sort of like tour insight visit, taking a group of 28 students from a school in West London to central London to visit a hotel. And I'll never forget one of the boys saying at the end of the visit, it was about a 2-3 hour visit, and he said, I thought everybody ever did in hotels was just sleep, and then you go out on the tour and you visit whichever country you're at. I never realized that there's a whole, hospitality department that makes cakes and does weddings. And I can't believe I didn't even think there's somebody who makes my bed. We'd come out from a trip going out and we'd see the bed was made. I didn't connect that there's a housekeeping department. Of course, there has to be a finance department, miss, because they need to make money. And he's like, I didn't connect all this. This is really great because I can work in a hotel all over the world because I love finance and I love math. And it can also help me travel. And I just looked at him and I thought, that's why we do it.
There it is.
I've
Yeah.
opened up his mind. The
Yeah.
employer I was part of this catalyst that helped bring these 28 students to a place where they could see possibilities for their lives later on. So, yeah, my job really and truly, a day in the life of Ladi, is about making sure that employers are connected with schools, educators, so that they can go in and make sure that these schools are positioning their students to be ready for the world of work later on in
Mm,
life, whatever that
yeah.
looks like for the individual student. And we're talking about every student there, not just, the average Joe, but students with special educational needs and disabilities, students who just maybe even just shy and, not talk much. It's about bringing them out and saying, what's going on in your world? Tell me about you.
Hmm.
What is it that, how can I help? What is it that you would like from me? A day in the life of, and my job is about making sure that we are helping to prepare young people to meet the demands of the world that they live in.
Mm. One word that comes to mind in listening to all of that, empowerment. It's got to be front and center of what you're involved in. And I'm sure there's those challenges like most professions have, and there's difficulties, stress, all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, though, I think like ultimately that's what you're striving for is to allow for empowerment to take place in these young
If
people's
you
lives
don't mind, I am
or whoever you're working with for that matter. Yeah.
exactly. I am going to so borrow that. I think that's going to be my key word for the next month or so, empowerment, because that is exactly what we do. I think you've
Yeah.
encompassed what we do very, very well in that just one word as such. So, and I do think the onus is on us as the adults, say, for example, around young people or around people who may just be unsure of where they are at this precise moment in their life. I think we have a collective societal, responsibility to look after each other.
Mm,
And I can't lie. And that's one of the reasons for me now where I'm living my truth. I'm living what I really believe in, and hence why I started Global Educational Travel and Tours, because I realized that I have picked up on my journey what I class as best practice, or should we say a better term, which I prefer, is leading an innovative and pioneering practice around the world. That I think to myself, sometimes we don't know how to do things better because we just don't know we
yeah.
don't know what we don't know. So let's make sure we take people around and help them to gain new knowledge so that they can know and then they can adapt their style. So for me,
Hmm.
it's about that kind of thing. Let's empower people to find out more. Let's empower people to gain knowledge. Let's empower students to be brave. And guess what? Go ahead and just try. Please road test different careers.
Hmm.
So that's one of my favorite things that I tell students, road test different careers.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, no problem. Go on to the next
Yeah.
one. Find what you do like at that particular moment in your life. And as we've already said, then be prepared to adapt it if later on you want something else.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Perfectly said. I would like to return the conversation to you and your background here in this next segment, pathways. We've already lightly spoken about this, about how windy they can be, left-hand turns, right-hand turns, so on and so forth. But how did you make your way towards becoming, a professional within the careers space?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. And I could sit here and talk to you for the next 2 hours about my journey, but I'm going to try and condense it into 2, 3, 4 minutes if I can. Basically, as I said earlier, I come from an African background. My father was sent over here by the Nigerian government to help set up trade between Nigeria and the United Kingdom. So we came over here, and I grew up in a very traditional African household, which my father sat me down and said, "You kind of got four choices in your career in life, laddie. Academia is the way to go. So you're going to go to university. And when you get to university, you're going to study one of these four careers: doctor, lawyer, accountancy, or engineer." I think from the day I was born, I knew I was going to take a degree. Whatever I did in life, I knew a degree was going to be part of it because as a child, you want to please your parents. So I went off to university and I was thinking, I can't stand the sight of blood. So doctor is out of the way. Can't really argue to save my life really at this stage and don't really like arguing. Lawyer out of the way. Engineering? What is that? Oh, science? No, thank you. Well, I love maths. So I did accountancy. And I did accountancy, and it's funny because my best friend that we met at university, and he's a fantastic accountant. So he went on and has been very successful, and even is helping me with the current business as our finance consultant. That said, I did accountancy and recognized that this is a bit boring for me. I'm not saying anything against any accountants out there. Please understand this is a fantastic career. But for me, Laddie, as an individual, I needed people contact a little bit more. So I came out of university very lost, didn't know what to do. And I was too scared to kind of talk to my parents about it because dad wanted accountancy and all the other three. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that. But so I thought, well, okay, I'm going to do the next best thing because I've been told, mom said I got to get a job. I walked into a job center and I said, and literally these were my words, mom and dad said, I've got to get a job. And I've been told that you can help me do that. And the gentleman there said, what do you like doing? And I said, oh, I studied accountancy, but I really like talking to people and helping people and just being of use in some way. And he said, oh, okay. He went over to some guy at the back of the room. The guy came back, and I realized that he was the manager of the job center. And they both said to me, Trevor was the guy who initially came to me and said, Trevor said to me, would you like a job here? And
Wow.
Dave, who was the manager, said, yeah. And I said, oh, yeah, please. That would be nice. Oh, okay. Dave says to me, okay, when can you start? Can you start now? I'm really sorry. Mom said I'm not allowed to wear jeans and trainers to an interview. So can I go home and get changed and I come back? And Dave, I'll never forget his words. Your mother has brought you up right. Start tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Dress
Get out of
appropriately. And
here.
that's how I got into helping people find jobs. And I really believe your career will find you because that
Yeah.
would
Did
you
it
like a
ever?
job here? And I spent the next year and a half supporting people into employment, helping them find work. And I found my passion. I found I loved it. Didn't have to do any accountancy and doctoring and all the rest of it. And guess what? It's made for a very happy life for me. So I'm very happy. So the traditional route of university seemed to work for me in the sense of it helped open that door because I think the degree, Trevor and Dave later on said to me, the fact that went to university showed that you had like team working skills, part of presenting and things like that, and that you could work to deadlines, you handed in your courseworks on time. So I kind of realized, hold on a second, these are all employability skills, life skills, not
Yeah.
academia skills that I gained at university. So for me, I'm a big fan of recognizing that university does a lot more than just academia. It does help you gain other skills, life skills, employability skills. That said, however, I do also think someone like my son, who's 15, Luke, he needs to do apprenticeship. University is not the way for him. Since 3 years old in his class, he put up his hand when he went to reception from nursery. He went to a nursery that he was allowed to play. He learnt through play. He learnt to count via going around a tree on his bicycle a certain amount of time. Going to a traditional classroom was not going to work for Luke. He came back the first day in a traditional classroom. He said to me, Mom, can you believe they asked me to sit all day? I had to sit in my chair all day. Someone like him, sitting down, monotonous is not for him. He likes outdoors. So for him, I know he's only 15 at the moment, but we know we're talking about doing either a degree apprenticeship or some kind of apprenticeship for him. The
Hmm.
traditional academic route is not for him. It was for me, but not for him. So technical and vocational pathways are also something that I'm really, sort of like bent on promoting for young people and just life people in general, really.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, that we could have a whole separate podcast just on apprenticeships, and on that side and that options. Cause I feel like in the last how many years, like a lot of people have been just shifted towards or have been directed towards academia. When the reality is, like you said, if you really get to know these people, these students, or what they're interested in, or the students themselves kind of get to know who they are and what interests them, there's a whole other world of possibility out there. Like it doesn't necessarily have to revolve around academia, and I think
No,
that unto itself can be, returning to that word of empowering, an empowerment right there,
exactly.
so for each individual.
And that's what a career guidance counselor does. And that's why, for me, it is key to appreciate career guidance professionals. They cannot be replaced. AI can give you traditional advice, but the getting to know you as an individual, listening to your background, my cultural story, if I told that to AI, it would have just said, go on and be a doctor or engineer or lawyer, kind of thing. But I needed to say to somebody, I'm not happy doing that, and somebody to really listen to why I'm not happy doing that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and analyze that and really find out what it is. Because through meeting sort of like guidance counselors is when I found out, oh, I thought I knew myself very well, but I don't. And it was a guidance
Mm.
counselor that brought that out. So for me, I think that's where for me the profession of the careers guidance counselor in itself is a key to education
Yeah.
and employment.
First off, I mean, what a story. How you landed that work. I mean, that's amazing unto itself. That's quite interesting. And then secondly, I think you just answered my next question in this next segment of Q&A Discovery. I was going to return to this career development specialist. And I think at this point in the conversation, listeners have a good idea of what it's fundamentally about. My question was going to be centered on, outside of what the main elements of what that job encompasses, the front and center bits and parts. What are some things that are underlying or things that aren't necessarily known by most, but are critical components of it? And I think you might have just answered it there as far as like building a relationship with that person, truly listening and trying to understand who they are as a person, what interests them, what doesn't interest them, and then going from there. But maybe there's something else you'd like to add. I'm not sure.
I think you've kind of really summed it up, really. It's the essence. I always say that the key skill for my role, even when I was an enterprise coordinator and then became a careers hub lead, is building those relationships, building relationships with students, building relationships with educators, building relationships with employers. Really active listening is key. There's times when I literally show people I'm putting my pen down, I'm sitting back so that they can know from my body language, I need to listen to you talk. Tell me everything. I'm in the mode of absorbing information. And you really let them talk. And, you may ask probing questions here and there. What does that look like to you? Never really give them the answer. Let them find the answer themselves. And the other thing is be ready that if they find the answer, they may come back to you and say, I don't really like that anymore. I want to change. Again, got to go back to that listening mode, building that relationship. And the key word for me is trust.
Right.
And that works
Yeah.
across every stakeholder that I've ever come across, not just young people, but employers. They need to trust me that I will help them get into schools so that they can protect and preserve their talent pipeline. I care about your business just as much as you do. Let's make sure that you're talking to the future generation about what skills you need that can help them preserve your organization. So building that trust, I think, is key. And also, of course, for students, I'm not just going to send you on any work experience at all. I'm going to send you on a work experience that you want to do. Okay, you want to actually work in a hospital. Let's make that happen. Yeah, we don't have enough doctors on our database. Let's find people that do have doctors on their database. And guess what? The school itself, there probably is somebody whose parent works in some kind of medical sector, even if they're not a doctor themselves. Let's utilize the parent pool as employer networks. I I remember when going back to Luke when he was in nursery, his nursery school which was fantastic, kind of based on a Montessori kind of thing that just, let kids play, learn through play. Their nursery school used to invite us as parents to come in and, read a book to them every Tuesday. And all those parents were rushing because we wanted to read a book. And I used to use that as an example to schools saying, look, parents are eager to support. They want their child to do well. So if you ask them to come in and give a talk as an employer, they will be there. Just put it in your newsletter and ask them, does anybody want to come in? We're looking for X amount of employers to speak on a speed networking session or at a, mentoring event or as a careers carousel. You will be inundated with the amount of, parents that say they want it, but you don't recognize it. That's a network there. So it's all about relationship building, as you said. Schools recognize that you have a network around you, parents' pools. Guess what? Your brother and your sister teacher is also working. Oh, your sister works for the UN? Could you please invite her to come and talk about what that entails? So it's about helping people to recognize also that they have a network. And that's just not students, but it's also the educators as well.
Yeah, it sounds like to me is applying some degree of creative skills as well. Of sometimes like you're looking for this and that and you can't find it. Well, you kind of have to go outside those boundaries and find some more creative ways of going about and accomplishing those needs that you have. So as far as like what type of person would fit well in this role versus somebody who might not, would you have any insight on that as far as becoming a career development specialist?
I would say definitely the relationship building skills that you said. So that would be key. So, I would 100% say that. Listening skills also, good communication skills is a must. Empathy, because people will come with their challenges to you, And you have to show some kind of empathy, towards it and understand where they're coming from so that you can kind of dish out guidance and advice, appropriately. Just trying to think leadership skills. And I think
Mm,
I kind of hesitated to mention that because other people often think of leadership skills as in leading other people. Leadership skills is leading yourself.
I like that.
Reflect on yourself and realize where you may need to build skills. And then be a leader to yourself to say, I'm taking myself forward and enrolling in this online course, 2 weeks course that will help me to be a better whatever it is that you want to be. For me, for example, I've enrolled in a LinkedIn marketing course just because I know that to be able to market my service as well, I haven't got a clue how to do that. I have been working for organizations that have had marketing departments for the last 30 years of my life. And I wish I'd paid a lot more attention to what they were telling me so for me, it's that kind of thing. And I'd also go as far as to say also teamwork skills. My current organization, Get Global Educational Travel and Tours, the team that I have around me, I cannot thank them enough. I empower them, but they empower me in return. And we all talk. And the thing is to recognize what people are going through. And there's no point you talking about, you've got targets to meet, that you've got to do. If the person in front of you is going through some kind of stressful time, appreciate that people have life issues going on. Take that person aside and say, what's going on? I noticed in the team meeting you weren't really paying attention. You okay? Oh, yeah, it's just my husband is really ill and we had to take him to hospital last night. Okay, talk to me some more about that. Okay, you know what? Take the day, go deal with that, come back tomorrow, or, work from home or do whatever, that kind of thing. So I'd say teamwork skills in the sense of not just concentrating on the work that needs to be done, because that is very important, but also looking at the bigger picture, the holistic person. What does your team member need? And working together, creating a shared drive where everybody can find something. Don't just keep the information to yourself. Share it. And when you share, you will see that this is how ideas get blown into something fantastic, something magical. Because guess what? You have an idea, someone else puts on it, next somebody else puts on it. And the next thing you know, wow, you've got a completely fantastic strategy for growing your business just because all of you worked as a team. And give credit where credit's due. If Christopher's done something fantastic, like starting a life as podcast, wow, this came out of pandemic. You see, the pandemic, as awful as it is, it gave birth to so much creativity worldwide. So always the other thing I will say is, be resilient. Spin life on itself. If bad things happen, you know, make lemonade out of lemons. Turn it around. The pandemic was awful. Yes, it was absolutely terrible. However, out of it, that disaster was birthed so many little other good things. And concentrate on the good things in itself. Make sure we don't have another pandemic in a lifetime. Anyway. So yeah, I think just let's concentrate on the positivities.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've got to say before I comment any further, I mean, like, as I'm listening to you, you state all this, like, I think you perfectly encapsulate what this profession is all about. And I think you would be the dream individual that a student or, an individual could come across mid-career, whenever, to speak with, because it doesn't just focus in on the jobs and the job options and here are the roles, here are the responsibilities of this, check this out. There's so much more, just the way that you explained it. And I think having that big picture look at it is so critically important, in order to do this job well and to not only empower, but to inspire others, to inspire people to dig further and to discover a little bit more about themselves and what's out there within the world. And sometimes it takes that little nudge or that push from somebody such as yourself. So I think what you just shared there gives a really clear insight as far as, the type of work that somebody such as yourself is, consistently involved in.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, thank you. I mean, all that you're sharing. I do have one last question here for you in this segment. And this one, it returns to this idea of career rub off. As you would know, some jobs, depending on the intensity, might have a greater degree of rub off from the professional side into one's personal life. Like the two are intertwined at all times, right? Now, as far as the work, somebody such as yourself, to what degree have you experienced that rub off from your professional side into the personal space?
I think it's a very good question you've asked me because it is something that I will probably say that, so I don't know, maybe I shouldn't use the word struggle with, but just because for me, I'm often being told by a lot of people, wind down, wind down. I don't know how to wind down because I'm too passionate about what I do. For me, I feel very blessed that what I do as a profession has allowed me to be authentic in my personal life as well. So it has 100% rubbed off. I have a need, an intrinsic need to be of use to those around me and to the world in general. And the older I have gotten, I realize that that need is even more strong. I have a need to see the world become better in my own little way, in my little corner of the world. I want to do what I can. And so for me, that intrinsic need of supporting my family members, supporting my friends, supporting neighbors, strangers, even, has definitely also come out in my professional life. It definitely has gone on to be everything that I do in work kind of has comes back to that need. So for me, I do think there's a morphing there, but I'm not upset with that morphing. I like that what I do professional feeds my personal desires as well. I genuinely say I make dreams come true. That I'd say probably that was my job before, sort of like taking career development professionals abroad kind of thing. When I was seeing students, I genuinely believed I make dreams come true, and I still do. But now I do it through empowering those, professionals that probably do meet with students more than I do. You know, so for me, it is about finding out what it is that you yourself as an individual like and are, again, I hesitate to use the word passionate about, and then recognizing that you can do something in that field to make the world, say for me, a better place. You can use something in that, do something with that passion as such. But then at the same time, for me, I use the word struggle just because I often have to remind myself to close the computer at the end of the day because I do have three beautiful kids that deserve, especially weekend time. Okay, this weekend, no laptop around. We're going to go out. We're going to go to see the latest Spider-Man movie. We're going to go, I don't know, to the sports center and, you guys are going to swim or whatever it is. I think to myself, once you do find your passion and once you find what it is that you love doing, just be careful that it doesn't take over your life. Be careful to just be mindful of those around you. My mother, for example, I make sure every Friday I go to see her because she's getting older. I got to spend time with her. I got to create those memories, and that's the same with the kids, to be honest with you. They don't get me wrong, they're all teenagers now and they don't want to hang out with mom as much as I would love them to. But at the same time, it's about creating those memories with them too. So, that they can draw back and learn from me. They are watching me. They are seeing whether I put that laptop away because that's the way I watched my father and has kind of like, copied him. They're looking at me.
Yeah,
So I got to
yeah.
make sure that
Well,
they have something good to copy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's perfectly said. And I think for you as well, with a bit of experience myself in entrepreneurship back in the day, I think that what you're just speaking of right now is going to be one of your next big challenges. Because certainly I can sense the passion in everything you do, and what you're involved in right now aligns well with these earlier passions that you had in your career. And now learning how to, wearing what 25 different hats constantly all at the same time, and then trying to find that space to work on the professional side of things in the business, and then also saving that time for family and friends, and your
Mm,
own personal life. Yeah, that can create a bit of challenge, I guess is the right word here.
exactly.
But knowing this ahead of time is half the battle, isn't it?
Exactly. And also surrounding yourself with people that can give you that good advice. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Someone like
100%.
Christopher who can say, knowing yourself is half the battle. So
Yeah.
surround yourself with people who can give you good advice.
All right. Well, I would like to step into another segment here. You did share a story earlier for us. So I am, for the sake of time, I'm going to skip over our water cooler story segment and go right into our crystal ball segment here. And as the name implies, we're looking towards trends, predictions, so on and so forth. Now, the talk of the town these days obviously is AI, and invariably that's what comes up within this segment. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're seeing within the career space right now as it relates to AI, and maybe what you predict we could be seeing coming down the pipeline here.
Hmm. I love my sector and I love my what I class as my global colleagues and my worldwide colleagues, including people like yourself. The reason being is that we have decided to be very curious about AI. And initially, a lot of people are very scared of it. It's going to replace my job. It's going to, take over. It'll make me redundant. But, my sector, we're very loud and open to ourselves. Other people may not know it, but we're very loud and supportive and really make sure that we look after each other as a sector. And we do this a lot through LinkedIn as such, which is an absolute fantastic platform for networking and relationship building. But yeah, so it's about being curious enough to want to know more about AI. So really delving into researching it. And there's some great people like Chris Webb who have done a lot of research, Deirdre Hughes, Leanne Hambley, they've all done a lot of research on AI and have decided that, look, this thing is actually quite useful for us. Don't be scared of it. Please don't. Actually embrace it. And I think that's what, for me, I think the key is for anybody really and truly in any profession in the world regarding AI. Embrace it. Find out what it can do. Because yes, it will probably automate itself to do certain things. I love AI. All my emails now, I love it because I run it through AI and it is just fantastic. It will help me format it correctly, say exactly what I want to say in a more concise way. However, it is also recognizing that it won't be able to replace everything, but more importantly, it will create other jobs.
Sorry to interrupt. In what ways are you seeing it having an impact already? Or in what ways do you see it maybe changing the game a little bit within your sector?
Here in the UK, we coined the term CEIAG, Careers, Education, Information, Advice and Guidance. And I often say that AI can possibly do the educating information and advice possibly, but it cannot do the guidance. That's the part I spoke about earlier that, you got to know the person on an individual basis. AI, for example, is a great platform. My son, I will tell you now, during just as we were coming out of the pandemic and he was learning about ChatGTP before I did, embarrassingly, my son was asking ChatGTP all sorts of questions. Him and my daughter learned to make lovely cuisine. We have Chinese food now without having to go to the Chinese takeaway down the road anymore because, yeah, she makes a wonderful sort of like sweet and sour chicken. And she learned this. She just asked ChatGPT, give me a recipe for, sweet and sour chicken. And Mom, could you buy this on your next shop? Yep. Tesco's was doing a delivery. We got all that in. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this smells lovely. What is this? And it tastes even better. And she kind of ended up perfecting herself. So my son also learned to cook that way. But then he was also doing things like, ChatGPT, can you give me a really good chat up line for this girl I like in school? And I'm like, hold on. Did you just ask ChatGPT for a chat up line? I was giving him some really cool chat up line. You've been, your feet must be tired. You've been running through my life all day. And I was like, oh my goodness, corny, but hey ho. And I'm like, okay, Luke, if you're using ChatGPT for cooking, for chat up lines, how about using it for career exploration? And he started doing it. And, he'd always wanted to kind of do engineering and be outdoor building stuff all his life kind of thing. But he found out that, guess what? This is the place. He was the one that came up to me and said, Mom, what's this apprenticeship thing? Because I think I want to do that instead. And I was like, sit down, son. Excellent. And of course, the career, guidance mama came out to him. But, he used AI to find out about other routes into the employment that he wants to get into eventually. So for me, it's about recognizing the capabilities of AI with regards to education, information, providing information. Like I said to him, ask AI, what educators are offering degree apprenticeships in engineering. And it listed all these out, in England. So it was fantastic, but I love it. It also said at the end, make sure you speak to your school careers guidance counselor. And I was like, well done, ChatGTP, recognizing that you yourself have, a limit as an AI platform. So yeah, for me, I think it will do certain parts of our jobs more efficiently for us so that it frees us up more to be able to do the proper guidance that we need to, if used correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And in return to that point we were speaking about earlier, I think you just touched on it right there, is relationships, focusing on that relationship and building that trust with the individual, and as far as, the AI being able to generate all these different bits of information, it creates content for a development specialist like yourself to interact with an individual, to examine this content, to look at it, to source it out a little bit further. And it creates these opportunities. And also, I think for the individual who is just maybe going through it, like your son or anyone else, like there's different points when they're digesting the content. they're creatively coming up with new prompts or questions to dig further. And I think that unto itself, like that action, can allow an individual to get deeper into it, more deeply invested into their own journey. Again, returning to that word, their journey of exploration when it comes to learning more about themselves, more about a profession, more about an opportunity. So yeah, I'm optimistic as well. I think AI can be this wonderful tool. I mean, there's going to be some challenges ahead with it, and we have to find, the ethics of it, and we have to make sure that all of those things are on board. But the pure essence of what it can offer to this space and to a professional such as yourself, there's a lot there. There's a lot there to work with, I guess, is what I'm
I
going
couldn't
after
agree
here.
more, Christopher.
Well, this very last question I have for you, Ladi. I know you've been very patient and you've been, great in answering all these questions. Maybe we've piqued the interest of someone listening to this episode in particular who's thinking like, yeah, I'm in on this. I want to learn more about this. I want to get a head start on a profession, within this space. What direct advice, input, tips would you give such a person?
Okay, depending on the conversation I would have had with the person and where we are at, I'm going to kind of summarize it to be what I genuinely give a lot of people in advice regarding any kind of career. Get some work experience, in that field. Go back to what I said earlier, road test different careers. Road test that particular career you're interested in. Like for my career, road test it. Ask some people. Can I shadow you? Can you tell me a little bit more about you? Can you tell me about exactly what you did to me, a day in the life of? What is it? What is your day like? What is your favorite part of your job? What part do you not like? For example, sort of like the record keeping part for me is quite tedious. Have to write notes every time, kind of thing. But I love interacting with people. So, getting the reality of what the role actually involves. That said, if you're wanting to go into careers, for me, you have got to learn to network, not just sort of like within your immediate circle kind of thing, your school's careers advisor or the people that they know, but, really globally. Find out what's going on out there. Speak to people internationally, because that is where you will find the niche that will make you you kind of thing. What do you like that person's doing that you can, kind of say to them, hey, can I borrow that? Hey, Christopher, can I borrow the word empowerment from you now on? Because that really encompasses what I do. So speak to other people, internationally, and become part of the global careers community. I want to give some props out to two wonderful ladies, Catherine and Bella, who have created this wonderful hashtag so much more than talking about jobs. And that is us. We do so much. People think careers professionals or development professionals is all about jobs. What job do you want to go into? We do so much more than talking about jobs. We really get to know you as an individual. What is it that you're passionate about right now? Because that can change in 5 years' time. What I was passionate about leaving university compared to when I became a mom and I had to get a part-time job because I had 3 little kids in diapers, is a lot different to even what I'm passionate about now. When I became a mom, I went to work in a school from 10 to 2 just so that I could have those hours for the 10 o'clock to drop my kids to school and after 2 o'clock to pick them up. So life will make things change for you. What you are kind of passionate about will change. I became very passionate about being a mom that was there for my kids. That was paramount at that. Now they're grown up, they're teenagers, they've walked away and don't want to go with mommy to the cinema anymore. I'm kind of like, okay, let me try this
Using
entrepreneur
ChatGPT
thing.
to find ways of chatting up some girls, and yeah,
Exactly.
whole
Making
different
mom
stage now.
redundant. Exactly. So for me, it's about, really connecting to that global careers community, like meeting Christopher and having a conversation with him. Really connect and realize that you will find out that it is so much more than talking about jobs, and use that hashtag to get to know other people. Follow the hashtag on LinkedIn and that there's a group on there, and that group will enable you to meet people that you can ask those questions. What's your day like? Oh, you work with older. I thought everybody worked with students. Oh, no, there is an older clientele, people who are transitioning, people who have been made redundant. I used to work in USA, and one of the things, there was an organization that came and asked us, could you come and talk to, we're laying a lot of people off. We've got about 200 people we've made redundant. Can you, as a career development specialist, come and talk to them about what their next steps are? All of a sudden, I'm in front of 200 people who are a lot older than me, you know, And it's not about just education in schools, it's about education in later life as well, helping them to realize that guess what? You've got transferable skills, skills that other employers are looking for. So please look at this chapter in your life as upskilling yourself to something else you may want to do altogether. You fell into this job. Guess what? You may want to. And I'll never forget, there was a gentleman who says, I've always wanted to be a dentist assistant. I was like, what? From an engineer to dentist, enrolled him on a course. He became a dentist assistant and he's doing very well. And he's very
There
happy
you go.
last I knew when I left tech X amount of years ago. So it's about leaving room for change and leaving room for adaptation and leaving room for growth, your own personal growth, and really connecting with people and building those relationships.
So eloquently put, and that might be a nice point to put a bow on this conversation. But I know that listeners are absolutely going to love this, Ladi. You've shared so much, and I can't thank you enough. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. It feels like we just got started. So thanks again for joining the program.
Thank you for having me.
Now, for those interested in learning more about Ladi and her work, you can do so via LinkedIn. You can also check out her website, Global Education Travel and Tours, or GET, G-E-T-T, in that website. And for reference, I will have links for both of those resources. And hey, if you like today's show, please be sure to tell a friend and share to show further support. You can always rate, review, and subscribe wherever you access your podcasts. And then, as I mentioned off the top, I do have a YouTube channel which hosts highlights from various conversations that I have with these guests. And if you do make it over there, comments, likes, and of course a subscribe would be greatly appreciated. We're a small channel and trying to grow that thing out as best we can. Your support would be greatly appreciated. Now, finally, don't forget to join us on the next episode of Life as a... You could literally be one listen away from finding your dream job. I'm Christopher Schoenwald, your host, and until next time, don't settle for less. Find the career you were born for.